All right, so a lot of what we do today is just writing stuff out. So you're going to have to write it out or type it out on your quiz. So exercise 1 says making the meaning of the slope and the y-intercept. I'm not a big fan of number 1, so I'm actually going to skip it and go to number 2. So number 2 shows us a chart and it wants you to find the slope. So remember how we find the slope in a chart. Remember, it's our change in x. I'm sorry, our change in y over the change in x. So how is our y changing? What do you mean? Ooh.
10.
Is it 10?
Oh, by fives.
You know what? I think they screwed this up. This is, sorry, I need to fix these notes. Change that to 10. I apologize. Change that to 10. Now, how much is it going by? There we go. That's my fault. And I'm going to put a plus 5 because it's going up. So positive 5. Now check the x. How is it moving? So up by 3.
Positive 3.
Yeah, perfect. Plus 3. So then our slope is that reduced. We can't really reduce it. So it's just 5/3. So then we need to get the y-intercept. The way we get the y-intercept is we go backwards, okay? We got to get to 0. If we keep going up, we're not going to get to 0, so we got to go backwards. So we were adding 3 here. So to go backwards, we're going to subtract 3. What is 3 minus 3? 0. Remember, I told you that this is an important spot in the chart. I told you this yesterday. On the bottom, we were going up by 5. So how do we go backwards? Subtract 5. So if we subtract 5, what will we be at? This tells us our y-intercept. Okay, this tells us our y-intercept. What is your y-coordinate? Right here. Which one is your y? 0 or 5? 5. So our y-intercept is 5. So every time we look at a chart, wherever x is 0 is our y-intercept, and our y-intercept is the y value. Okay, so here's what it is. The slope is a little bit harder, so I'm going to look at the y-intercept for a minute. Remember when we graph and we have this equation? Y equals, our slope was 5/3 x plus 5. How do we graph? How do we graph this equation? That's exactly what it means. We start with 5, but put it in context of the problem. What was 5? What row was it in? Dollars in food. $5 in food. I'm okay if you just put 5, starts with $5, okay? All right. So what is the meaning? You're going to read it in context of the problem. As dogs increase by 3, where did I get increase from? Because it's going up. Food cost, because that's your y, does what? What does the bottom do? Increases by $5. You could also put for every 3 dogs, price increases by 5. Read in here. So that's literally, that's all we're doing today. Okay, so we're going to keep going over it, and that's what we're doing. All right, look at the next one. Jackson bought a computer that came with 30 programs. He added 5 programs every month. So how many programs were there in the beginning? 30. This is your start or your y-intercept. Remember that. So where you start is also called your y-intercept. How many programs are increasing each month? 5. This is your rate of change, otherwise known as slope. Okay, rate of change or your slope. So I'm gonna skip the next two for a minute. I'm gonna go to the bottom. What is my equation? It is y equals 5x, because that's your slope, and a positive 30. All right, so our y-intercept was 30. Put that in context of the problem. What is that 30? Of what? Yep, started with 30 programs. Perfect. That's all it's asking you to do. You'll have test questions, EOC questions like this, and they're really simple. And typically they're multiple choice. You don't have to write them out, obviously. So it'll say, what's the meaning of your y-intercept? Is always where we start. Okay, start at 30. 30 what? 30 programs. What's the interpretation of the slope? What's it say? Every month, what happens? Increase by 5. Every month. You can put the number of programs, or you can just put it increases by 5. And I'm okay with you putting I and C, that's fine. That's literally it, yeah. That's what it wants you to do. So the only thing is, you already know the slope and the y-intercept, it just wants you to put it in words. Again, I don't like number 1, so we're gonna move on. This one says, write an example involving stairs that has a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of 4. So what would that equation be? Y equals 2x plus 4. So think about what we just did. Our start, our increase, blah, blah, blah. And just use stairs for this example. So if I were graphing this, what would I do? Start at 4, but put it in terms of stairs. Start on the 4th stair. Somebody else. What's our slope tell us? Go up 2 stairs. Y'all, that's it. That's all I wanted you to do. Don't make it harder than what it is. All right. Y equals. What's your slope? How do you find your slope on a graph? Yeah, draw your triangle, rise over run. Be careful of the scale though, okay? Be careful of the scale. How far do we rise from 0 to 5? It's from 0 to 5. Look at your scale. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. No worries. I just wanted to point that out. This is what they'll do on the EOC to you, okay? They'll give you something like this, but they'll change the scale. So watch those scales. And then how far over did we go? Look at your pink line. How far does it go to? 20. So rise over run. Then we put our X. Where did we start?
0.
Perfect. Start at 0. What is 5 over 20 actually? Good. And I'm going to keep that 0 there for just a minute. When you give this equation to me, you can put the plus 0 and that's fine, but technically you don't have to put it at all. So you could just give me 1/4 x. Both of those would be correct answers for me. Okay, you got the problem right. You just didn't write it in the same form. It's okay. What was your slope again? 1/4. What's your y-intercept again?
0.
We already wrote our equation, so I'm just going to copy it down. You can put the plus 0 or not. It's up to you. Decide what you want to do. All right, so let's look at this graph. When she delivers newspapers, she gets paid. Does everybody understand that? Newspapers get paid. So what does this y-intercept mean? Starts at what? 0 what?
$0.
Perfect. And why do we use $0? Because we use our y. She doesn't deliver newspapers, she doesn't get paid. What's the slope?
1 more 40.
Okay, so that means for every, let's look at this, your X is newspapers, your Y is money, here's your slope. Sorry, do it the other way. Change in Y over the change in X. So this means this is money, this is newspapers. So what does that mean? What does she get paid? What's her pay rate?
$1 every 20.
That's exactly it. She gets paid $1 for every newspaper. Or what could you, for every 4 newspapers? What else could you put? How much does she get paid per newspaper? 25 cents. You could put that too. That is the same thing, okay? So if we look at this equation, we could also write it as 0.25x, so 25 cents per newspaper. Okay? Is everybody okay with that? Whichever one is more comfortable for you is the one I want you to use. All right. Check this next one out. The function below shows the cost to ride a taxi in New York City. What's the y-intercept?
$5.
$5.50. Okay, so here's what happens. Some of you have probably never been in a taxi before, and that's okay. So this is exactly what happens. You get in, and it's already set on a fee. So your meter that runs as you drive, it's already set. It might be $1.20. It might be $1.30. Like where we live, it's going to be really, really cheap. Okay, but in New York, taxis are in big demand, so they jack that price up. So when you get in, it's automatically $5.50 is what it's telling you. Then it tells you, what is your slope? It's $1.50. That means, and the M stands for mile. So for every mile you drive, it adds $1.50 to your price. Okay. So if the taxi ride cost $18.75, how many miles was the trip? So this is what it says. F of M is the total cost. Just the M is miles. What did it give you in this problem? Did it give you the miles or did it give you the total cost? Total cost. So we're going to plug that in for the total cost. Go ahead. We're going to plug that in for the total cost, and then we're going to solve it like we've been doing since the beginning of the year. So our total cost was $18.75 equals 150M plus 550. Going way back, what are we solving for? What's on the same side? Somebody else, but not with it. Yep, so I'm going to get rid of it by subtracting it. $18.75 minus 550. 13.25. No worries. Great job without a calculator. Great job. Last step, divide by 150. And what do we get? Yeah, and it's going to be a decimal, and that's okay. So 883 what? What's my units? Miles. M stood for miles. You don't have to worry too much about units because if they give you multiple choice, then you just type it'll just have it all in miles. It won't have different units, okay? Just a couple more and we'll be done. 2 more. All right, back to a chart. We got to figure out our slope and our y-intercept. Remember your slope is the change in y over the change in x. So what is your change in y? We said add 12. If you look at the top, Your change in X is a +1. So Y over X is 12 over 1 or just 12. Somebody that hasn't answered, how do I get to my y-intercept? Go backwards. So up here, I was adding 1, so I need to minus 1. And remember, I only need to get to 0, so I'm already there. Already there. On the bottom, I need to minus 12. What is 27 minus 12? 15. This tells me that my y-intercept is 15. Somebody else. What's my equation? Y equals,
12x plus 15.
perfect, 12x plus 15, all the way around, all of you guys. What's the meaning of the y-intercept? Remember, start at, you're right, you start at, it says amount paid, so $15. Perfect. Our hours are going up 1, so for every rental hour increase, every rental hour price goes up $12. Perfect. And these are really, really simple. They're not hard on your test or anything like that. And one more time with the crazy graphs. Watch your scales. Okay, last one. Yeah, we're gonna be in good shape. Colby put $100 in a savings account. The graph below shows the amount in the account. So it just keeps going up because it earns interest. And this is how it would increase over the next 10 years. So the first thing we can pick out really easy is what's our y-intercept? Where do we start? 100. What's the meaning of that?
That's what you started out with. How much money you started out with.
Started with $100. Perfect. To find our slope, remember we do our rise over our run? What was our rise? From 100 to 150 is 50? How far did we go? So rise 50, run 10. Is it positive or negative?
Positive.
Because it's going up. When we reduce it, we get 5. What's this mean, 5?
How much money?
Each year, the account goes up by $5. Doesn't seem like a lot, but that's not money that he's putting in there. That's your interest. So it's kind of like free money, but it's not. Kind of is. So then what's your equation? Y equals
5x
plus 100. Uh-huh. It's okay. I'm only zooming, Mary Kate. All right. That's all we have for notes. So if you're good, you can jump off of here and take your quiz. If you're not good, stay on here and ask questions.